good morning, and it's great to be back. Amal, of course, is a Lebanese-born British citizen who trained at Oxford, was trained as a lawyer in the United States, served, among other things, under a future Supreme Court, and then came back to Britain to work on human rights, where I first met you. We have one of the most important headlines in today's newspaper. Clooney beats Blair in Maldives asylum battle, right, in your Times today. What are you working on now? Catch us up.
Well, happily,
you just won.
This case is concluded for the time being. That was a case where I represented the former president of the Maldives, Mohammed Nasheed, who was a climate change activist and the country's first democratically elected president. He was falsely imprisoned in his country, and we were able to get him released to the UK, and now he has asylum here.
Why was he imprisoned in his own country?
Well, basically because he was too popular and he became a political threat to the current dictator. The Maldives had a dictatorship for 30 years, and then Nasheed was president for 4 years, which was the first sort of move towards democracy. And now, unfortunately, the brother of the initial dictator is in power again, and so they charged him with terrorism and put him on trial. He was charged, tried, sentenced in the Maldives in 3 weeks, and the trial had two of the three judges didn't have law degrees, and 2 of the 3 judges had actually been witnesses for the prosecution. So the defense said, perhaps you want to recuse yourself.
I think their excuse was it's a very small country.
Yeah, I mean, they thought there was no conflict, and I mean, there's astounding statistics by the State Department where they say 1 in 4 judges in the Maldives has a criminal record. I mean, it's not kind of judicial system that you would want to be dealing with as a defendant. But so he was sentenced to 13 years. And so I took up his case and took it to the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention, and we won the case. So the Maldives government hired Cherie Blair and a separate team of barristers on the other side to defend this trial and say that it fully complied with human rights obligations. And we won the case, but the Maldives government didn't comply with the ruling, didn't release him. So I initiated a conversation in Washington and in Brussels on imposing sanctions against the worst human rights violators in the Maldives. And once I think the government understood that the specter of sanctions was looming, they did agree to transfer him to London initially for medical treatment. And now he's got asylum. So that was the victory that's being heralded in the Times, which I haven't read yet. But,
you said you and I first met when you were working in The Hague. Mm-hmm. And you explained to me, with perhaps less than full credibility, that it was a tremendous place and you loved going there every week.
Somehow I must have been joking.
Oh, that was a joke? Okay.
I mean, the work's really interesting, but I'd moved from New York to The Hague, and it was a rather different pace.
I can imagine. But you've spent, at least the decade I've known you, in these political situations with these super government agencies. Does it work? Does it ultimately play? Here we have a big victory. It ultimately works?
It sometimes works. These cases are really difficult. So when you get a victory, it's something to really celebrate, because you're dealing with governments by definition who aren't respecting their obligations towards their citizens. So sometimes you are able to apply pressure through the judiciary, and sometimes you have to sort of work with diplomats. So I'm doing another case at the moment representing an Azerbaijani journalist who's in prison in Baku, basically because she was the best investigative reporter in the country and uncovered evidence of corruption against the president, implicating the president, and so she's been locked up. There I can actually go to a court, because Azerbaijan is a member of the Council of Europe, so I've taken her case to the European Court of Human Rights. I've been told by the Azerbaijan government that if we win the case, they will comply with the ruling and release her, but if they don't, then I'm back in the domain of, what kind of pressure can you apply on the government? And sanctions is one of the most important tools today for basically convincing governments to comply with their international obligations.